Hi, my name is William Schroeder, and today I am joined with Loren Lomme, who is a therapist here with me at Just Mind Counseling. And today we're going to talk about some back to school tips for kids getting ready to go back to school. So, we're going to start off with what are some common emotional challenges that kids face when transitioning back to school that parents might not recognize?
So this looks different probably for different ages, but little kids, often there's separation anxiety that happens, and parents actually are probably pretty familiar with that one, especially if you've had a kid in daycare. But it can look different sometimes as they go into school. Anxiety starts to show up, and often with little kids, parents aren't really familiar with what that looks like. It can look like headaches and stomach aches, but it can also just look like unusual behaviors or changes in their routine. And with bigger kids, we often see anxiety or just dread, or we start to see sometimes like defiance or impulsivity, things like that, because there is maybe underlying anxiety about going back to school. Kids often don't know either how to tell us or want to tell us things that maybe didn't go well the previous school year, but they still remember that those things happened. And as they go back to school, all of kind of the emotions that went with that start to build up for them. And so parents kind of get this unexpected behavior or emotions and they don't really know where it's coming from. So sometimes it honestly just looks like weird behavior.
And in your work, how do you help parents distinguish between defiance and dysregulation?
Yeah, that's a good question. To be honest, there are very few times that kids are just outright willfully defiant. I mean, it is sort of a developmental thing when kids are testing limits, but in general, most of the time, there's either a problem with a kid feeling disconnected from themselves or from people around them, a kid having trouble regulating their emotions, or a kid not feeling safe in their environment and not necessarily physically safe, but just emotionally safe or comfortable. So, generally, it's one of those three things going on and not often just blatant defiance.
Okay. Co-regulation is such a big theme in your work. Can you unpack what it is and what a parent might practice and how they can do it in a given moment? Any examples, even what that might look like?
Yeah, so co regulation really just means using our mature adult nervous systems to help a kid's immature nervous system get it together. Kids don't really have the capacity to monitor and manage their own emotions very well. And this is really any kid all the way up till seniors in high school. They're just not very good at it because they don't have fully developed internal resources. So when we co regulate with kids, we use our own bodies and our own nervous systems to stay grounded so that a kid can borrow our calmness to help their nervous system shift into a more regulated state. What that might look like is maybe we say to our kid, "Would you like to take a deep breath with me?" Or "Would you like to go walk around the block with me?" But sometimes it looks like not interacting verbally with our kid at all. Sometimes it means that we just focus on what's going on inside our own body. And if we can focus on taking our own slow, deep breaths or noticing our feet on the ground or noticing what our emotional state is, that's enough for our nervous system to shift into a little bit of regulation. And our kids' systems will automatically borrow what's happening within our own selves. If you think of it like kind of a cell tower that like pings and sends out little signals, little kids' systems go ping and they bounce off of whatever's happening in us, and their system just sort of adjusts. So we can co regulate in either of those ways.
Perfect. How can parents use reflection with their kids to better prepare for the school year without making it feel like a therapy session for their kids?
Yeah. So reflecting is sort of like a parenting magic wand. Kids hate questions and their brains are not very good at answering them. It sort of puts them into like a freeze mode. So we can often just use a reflection, which means saying or making a statement about what we think our kid is experiencing or feeling. And this can be as simple as, like, gosh, that does sound scary. Or I don't think I would know what to do in that situation either. Let's figure this out together. So it might just mean like joining in with their experience. And it might also just look like acknowledging that what they're saying or communicating to us is valid, of like, yep, that makes sense. You've never been there before. I can see why you would feel really nervous right now.
So, what do you say to a parent who feels like they're failing because mornings are chaotic or their child is still melting down every afternoon? What do you say to the parents that are struggling with that?
I would say that you are the typical parent And all of our kids melt down in the morning and in the afternoon, and we just do our best to hold on to hope that they are eventually going to mature and their nervous systems will develop and they will get better. And just know that like all of us are in the same trench as you are. And there's not like a magic way to sort of get out of that. My best piece of advice is instead of trying to shift your kid out of a meltdown, try to shift yourself into being able to tolerate it better. And that goes back to the whole co-regulation thing of really we're also helping our kid in that moment because they'll borrow what's happening within us. So just know it will almost always get better for some kids that happen to, take longer to develop or are extra sensitive to the world. Sometimes it just takes a little bit longer.
For neurodivergent children or those with 504 plans, how should caregivers advocate effectively at the beginning of the school year?
Yeah, I always encourage parents, if you know that you have a kid that has any kind of like special need, whether it's a learning difference or a behavioral difference or an emotional need or something particular is happening in your family or your kid's life that you recognize that's going to cause your child to need some extra support, go ahead and start making those connections, that first week before school starts or the first couple of weeks of school. Send a quick email to their teacher, send an email to the school counselor, and go ahead and just be honest about, hey, these are things I know about my kid and that they're probably going to need some extra support around. And you can either share with them, these are things that we do at home, and we know that this helps when this kind of situation comes up. Or ask, what do you guys normally do when you have a kid that has this going on? And work together with with the people who are at your kid's school who are already built in to support them. They want to know what already works, and they're happy to share what they do as well. So building relationship or going in with the mindset of like we're all just going to be a team and we're all here to support my kid is a really great way to set them up for success.
Perfect. All right. So, last two questions that I have for you, Loren. If a parent could focus on one thing during the first month of school to support their child's emotional wellness, what would you recommend to them?
My biggest recommendation would be the after school time, that their day is already stressful. There's transitions happening. There are lots of changes going on. So if you can use the hours between after school ending and bedtime to have non-directive things going on, really fun activities, things that are like totally laid back and low demand, use that time to help refresh and rejuvenate your kid's nervous system so that when they go back the next day, they've had a chance to discharge any stress that came from that day. And that really sets them up for being successful, but also knowing that when they come home, they're going to get a break and they're going to get connection time, they're going to get fun time, and it's going to be easier for them to go back every single day.
And can you give any examples of what that might look like for after school?
Yeah. So for younger kids, this would probably look, I always try to say like unstructured things. And I know that there are the kids who want to play sports and do piano and all those things, and that's totally fine. But also allowing time to go outside or play at the park or play a game with you at home, things that have like no expectations around them that the kid can kind of direct. And we're just there like joining in on their fun. And then the same thing for teenagers and older kids, it probably will just look a little bit different. It might mean like going to get coffee together or cooking dinner together or asking them to have friends over because we know, as kids get older, the peers become more important. So making sure that you're offering those opportunities after school for kids to engage in the things that they would be doing if it was the weekend, but instead getting those opportunities after school.
Last question for you. What small but powerful actions can parents take to build connection with a teacher?
Yeah. Um, for younger kids, I often have parents and kids create an About Me book, which is super simple. Literally just the names of the people in your family. If you have pets, your kid's top 3 favorite things, and one thing that, your teacher can do to support your kid when they're having a hard time, and have them hand it to their teacher on the very first day of school. And that automatically builds a connection between you, your kid, and your kid's teacher. Also, reaching out to teachers to set up a beginning of the year phone call or sending a quick email just to say, hey, I'm so and so's parent. I just wanted to let you know who I am and that I'm happy to work with you this year on anything that you might need. Simple, like little things like that. As your kid gets older, this is harder because I realize they have like 10 different teachers, but it still doesn't hurt to send a quick little introductory email. And I will say bigger kids never want to go to the back to school nights, but if you can, just still go and take the 5 minutes to walk to each of the 7 classrooms, meet the teachers really quickly, put a name to a face or a face to a name. And that's a really good way to at least start a relationship with somebody so that when you reach out later, if you need to, you can be like, hey, I met you on back to school night. Remember, I'm so and so's parent. And big kids push back sometimes, but once you get there, their friends are there and they don't really care. So just make them do it.
If somebody wanted to talk with you more about this, what is the best way for them to potentially schedule some time?
Yeah. So we have 2 options. We offer single session therapy, which is sort of like a walk-in clinic with appointments. And this is great for if you have just like a couple of questions that you really just want to get some more feedback about, or 1 or 2 things that you feel like you're just not quite sure about, but would like, maybe an hour just to talk with somebody. So that's a first option. If you feel like you're wanting something more in depth or a little bit more long term, then you can reach out to our client care team and they can connect you with me or somebody else at Just Mine who is familiar and can work with, kids, teens, parents, families, or whatever you guys might be needing.
Thank you.